Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for FourCast is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This episode of FourCast is brought to you by Netflix. Watch thousands of TV episodes and movies streamed to your PC, Mac, or TV instantly. Plus, get DVDs by mail in about a business day. For your free 30-day trial, go to netflix.com/twit.
What sort of future do you think we're heading for? How will we live as we slip into the 21st century?
Welcome to FourCast, episode 79. I'm Tom Merritt.
And I'm Scott Johnson.
And this is the show where we invite a couple guests on to give us their perspectives on the future and try to come with a unique view of how things are going to happen.
Tom, did you say show 79?
I did.
Did you say that?
79.
Oh, my gosh. One away from 80, folks. So
That's
stay
right.
tuned. 80 is going to be something.
One more than 78. If we were Rebecca
special,
Black,
sure.
we could write a song about this. Joining us today, CEO of A-Frame, David Peto. Welcome, David. Good to have you on the show.
Hey guys, welcome from sunny London, or more like midnight over here.
The sun always shines in London. Also joining us, Shawn Boyd, a.k.a. Doc Rock, writer for Nonstop Honolulu, and all-around Swiss Army nerd.
Aloha no kako. How you guys doing?
Mahalo for joining us. Thanks. Thanks for being
very
here.
good, Tom.
Yeah, I read it on an ABC store bag. That's how I learned that. All right, let's kick it off with a prediction from a listener. Joe Wilkes wrote in to fourcastpodcast@gmail.com. Said, "Greetings, forecasters. I've been thinking about this for a while now, and I wondered what you guys thought of the idea. My prediction is that in 10 or 20 years, the alphabet will completely change from the traditional ABC to that of the keyboard layout, QWERTY. I predict this on the basis that I can't recall the last time I saw the alphabet laid out as ABC. Every time I see letters laid out, they're in QWERTY format. Just think about it. When was the last time you saw the alphabet as ABC? I can't wait for the day children come out of school singing QWERTYUIOPASDF. Catchy, right? Not quite, perhaps, but it'll get there.
Nah, this will never happen. I keep hearing people saying that we're still coming toward a day when we're all going to start using the ABC keyboard, that we're going to drop QWERTY forever. So this seems to be in sort of direct opposition to that idea. And I don't know. I just don't see – it's too much to change. It's kind of like, you know, Britain hanging onto the pound for dear life. They're not going to change no euro.
Or the United States hanging on to the imperial measurement system.
Right.
Yeah.
Same thing.
The thing is, you said I've got a 12-week-old daughter. I mean, she's tiny. It's amazing. But I sat there with my wife the other day, and she was sitting there. We were getting worried she was going to be left-handed because it's more difficult to write left-handed than right-handed. And my answer was, she's not going to be doing any writing by the time she's 7, 8. She's going to be working on a tablet or a keyboard or whatever else. And so I think you're right. I think you're going to see the alphabet change because she's never going to write her ABCs. Probably she'll just be typing.
Shawn, what happens to ABC stores in Honolulu? If it did they become QWE stores?
You know, it's funny because the ABC and ABC store doesn't actually have anything to do with the alphabet. It basically stands on all bases covered because they're on every corner.
Right, and sometimes two on a corner.
Yeah. So that's where they got the name from. But in reference to the question, I think, I agree. It's really hard to move people's cheese in this day and age, but that's because of us. I think the kids nowadays are a little bit better, and if we teach them to be open while we're teaching them now, then they'll be able to just change on the fly, and they won't be stuck like us. That being said, my niece, who is 18 months, she can read everything from that Your Baby Can Read thing, which I thought was a total farce until I see her reading. It's pretty impressive.
No, kids are crazy, but shouldn't we? So, Tom, you brought up the metric system and how we just, kicking and screaming with our miles and our feet and our yards.
Yeah, I think it's us and Haiti and one other country, Liberia are the only.
Right.
Maybe
so
I may have Haiti wrong, but I know Liberia's in there with us.
But technically, if you do the math, you and I should be that generation that kicked that and said, we're going to accept this thing, because that would have been about our time. So what will change here? Why would kids now be any different if the same stuff's being forced down their throat every day at school? They're not going to change. We'd have to change what we teach.
David, you were going to say something about the metric system?
Oh, yeah, no, I was going to say that. You've got to forget, we're still crazily holding on to our miles and everything over here. So we don't have kilometers. We have the kind of comedy situation where your gas mileage over here in the UK is still measured in miles per gallon, but you buy your fuel in liters. So when you're trying to work out how economical or not economical your car is, it's, yeah, kind of amusing.
Yeah, the first time I ever bought gas, I think it was actually in Ireland. I was at first like, oh my gosh, it's only like 50 pence a gallon. That's amazing. And then I realized it's actually being measured in liters. And it became a lot more expensive really fast.
Yeah. So we still hold on to all those things. Though we have an exemption in Britain. We love exemptions. It's what we do because we hate Europe. And we have exemptions so that on our market stalls where you buy like groceries, they have exemptions. You can still sell stuff in pounds, not just in whatever it is. I don't know what they do, cubic centimeters squared or something they do in Europe.
Yeah, but at least you reformed your currency. You don't have 3 numbers for prices anymore. I mean, you've made some progress.
I have bought something for a groat recently, but
that's fantastic. All right, well, thanks, Joe Wilkes, for sending on the email. Very thought-provoking, good stuff. Send your predictions to us, fourcastpodcast@gmail.com, or post them up at our blog, fourcastpodcast.com. Let's get into the short-term predicting, and Shawn, we'll start with you. These are things you think will happen sooner rather than later, maybe the next few years. What's your short-term prediction?
Ooh, well, I think right now one of my biggest short-term predictions is not really super far-fetched, but I totally see a future where we are more like acceptable of these tablet-oriented devices, and the giant computer as we know it will sort of go away. And all it's really going to take is the broadband companies to like loosen up some of their strategies in order to, foresee a better future. And, the iPad has really changed my life. This is the first time in God knows years where there's not a laptop next to me ever. Like, I haven't used a laptop in, God, ages. I mean, it's all about the iPad now.
So we had this come up last week about similar to this, not the same question or not the same prediction, but this idea that we would get rid of or we would slowly start to see workstations go away. Or actually, the prediction last week was kind of the opposite of that, is that there would be a resurgence of sort of production level, pro level hardware that's big and on your desk and all of that, even as all these portable devices take off, and that there would be sort of a kind of a regrowth in that part of the market. Do you feel like, and I'm with you on the iPad, I think is next to me all the time. I use it for just about everything, but there's certain things I got to have this big monster workstation for. Where do you see the future of that kind of work? You think it'll just get better on portable devices and tablets and that kind of thing?
Well, it's funny because that just turned me into a giant hypocrite, because I'm talking to you from a blue eyeball connected to an 8-core, which is warming up my ankles right now. But that's because, I'm trying to, do my podcast and my editing, of course, photography and things like that. So for that workstation machine, yes, that has to be there. But I love the fact that in the middle of, if I'm not editing, if I just need to do kind of my textual type of things, I can grab, Nebulous and Dropbox and take off and go get a cup of coffee or a bottle of sake and go hide in the park somewhere and just do my work. So I like that either or thing. I want the SUV and a bicycle.
Yeah, I would hesitate to agree that, we're going to not have desktop computing. And we talked about that last week, the reasons why. But I do agree that the needs for them are diminishing into niche areas. For instance, this weekend, I went down to my father-in-law's in San Jose. I used to bring my laptop and my plug-in cord. I don't do that anymore. I bring my iPad. Because it used to be a big family thing for my wife's family. We'd sit around on our laptops and exchange programs and MP3s and do all this stuff. Now it's just iPad apps. We sit around and we've all got iPads and I think there was one weekend recently where I realized I'd gone home, plugged in my laptop, closed the lid, and I hadn't opened it all weekend because everything I needed to do I was able to do on a tablet or a phone.
That's true. I did Macworld this year with just an iPad. I didn't even open the notebook at all. And that was shocking to me. That was my first trip iPad only. And that was actually prior to iPad 2. So, it was pretty trippy, walking around and doing that. But coming back just with camera connector kit and, you know, basically able to rock. And now, the other day we played with the Meteor mic plugged into the camera connection kit, talking at GarageBand and basically doing a podcast straight from an iPad. And it's the only thing that it needs is a little bit better way of adding, you know, your music to the back, or, you know, your intros and outros. But I mean, basically it's there. It's pretty impressive. And we haven't even scratched the surface of what an iPad can do until iOS 5 comes out.
So, David, where do you see the future of desktop versus portability, and that gap either getting larger or smaller?
I think it's let's put it this way, right? We're predominantly, a lot of technology buyers are all men, and they continue to be men. And men like, let's say, if we can get accused of compensating for things. So we like big things. You know, it's like you guys in the US, obviously your gas mileage, everything else, you're being told you've got to go buy a Prius, but you still go out and buy a Dodge Ram because you want to feel like a guy, and you want to feel you can, you know, uproot tree stumps when you're frankly in suburbia. But the same thing with the desktop computing. We like power. We like feeling that we have something bigger and better than the other guy. Now, when it all goes to iPads and everything else, that simply is a case of, well, ooh, I've got this new app. Well, anyone else can have this app, this other app. In fact, what I think well, to put it this way, I come from the world of post-production, so basically making TV shows. And I had a business which did everything that all these big post companies did with just a Final Cut Pro in a suite for Apple editing software. But time and time again, we would lose out to the producer wanting to go and sit on the $250,000 piece of equipment in the big room with the big monitors, with the big hardware, because they wanted to say that's what they were using. Now, that is going to continue. So the big stuff is going to stay. And I think actually you're going to see, I think the same as the guy did last week, a bit of a backlash against some of these things where people want to feel like they've got something solid and they can talk about it. Because otherwise you're just like, well, hey, I've got an iPad. Well, I've got an iPad and I've got an iPad. And as you know, we always order the stuff with the optional extras for our car because we want to have better stuff than the other guy.
Well, you differentiate your tablet by apps and also getting very large cases so that they are actually as large as a Dodge Ram.
Right.
And in some cases can pull out tree stumps. But, yeah, no, it's funny. My father-in-law's iPad, he's got an iPad, but it's in this really thick, like, businessy, productivity-looking case. So it looks like he's got this amazing machine. I'm like, that's just an iPad, right? He's like, oh,
generational. It's like Targus doesn't make them big enough for some people, I'll tell you. You got to get the biggest thing you can. Suitcase is not enough for an iPad for some people.
All right, let's move over, David, to your short-term prediction. Things you think will happen sooner than later. What do you got for us?
Yeah, basically, what I was getting interested in was obviously there's all this stuff on hacking in the news at the moment. So the IMF got hacked and various other places. And basically, my prediction is that within the next 5 years, someone is going to successfully hack the entire global positioning system. It's going to happen. Someone's going to have a go at it, and maybe someone will get it working. Now, apart from all of the horrific consequences of airplanes not knowing where to fly and all that kind of stuff, I think it's just interesting from if you're looking for the amusing side of the idea of all of these guys and girls now are completely and utterly reliant on your iPhone saying go left, go right, you'll go here, actually going back and having to look at a map. My God, and what chaos this could bring to the Western world when we suddenly no longer have our car telling us where we go, and we actually had to use our brains. And I think this is actually something that's a serious, as could be something quite serious if someone got around to doing it, especially considering what it looks like. We've now got whole governments sponsoring cyber, what you would call terrorism or hacking. Yeah.
So what would be a good? And maybe we have a fallback plan for this. I don't know. But if the satellite structure, the infrastructure the satellites provide went away, would we suddenly be exposed militarily? I'm trying to think of other ways. But other than just some guys like, my iPhone ain't working. But like, would we see bigger, more nasty stuff happen? And what would be a good fallback plan? Like, what did they do when air travel was happening before GPS was a way that we, globally tracked where planes were and where they were going?
Yeah, I don't think airplanes rely exclusively on GPS, even today. It's just another factor that makes it easier to fly the plane.
Well, one of the reasons I brought this up was I did a little bit of research when I kind of thought about this, and I looked for fallback plan on GPS. And do you know what the fallback plan was that George Bush came up with? Was if someone attacks GPS, we'll turn it off. Genuinely, go look. It's in 2004. It's on the White House website, and it was, we'll turn it off because then they can't use it. And I'm like, what? But that was his genuine thing. And then they had to prepare the population. They had this plan for how to prepare the population for the lack of GPS.
Well, and to be fair, GPS was used much less pervasively in the consumer market at that time. And so if you have no direct reliance on GPS, if it's just supplemental, turning it off isn't such a horrible idea because you actually have taken it from being a confusing thing to being nothing at all, and that's better. I'm not sure what you would do as a fallback plan if GPS. I don't even know how GPS could get hacked in a way that would be beneficial to the hacker, other than just messing everything up.
I think it's more the kind of question is that now if you're trying to stop an army doing anything or anybody actually doing stuff like that, the best way to do it is to stop their ability to actually communicate and get around. And there was something I also found about how you could jam the signals on a much wider basis.
Yeah, because the satellites themselves would be quite difficult. I think you have to have physical access to hack the satellites, which is going to be tough. But yeah, if you can jam the signal, or if you can hack into the computers, down on the ground that are doing the interpretation for various sectors, then you could cause some havoc by relaying missed readings. I think anybody who's ever used an iPhone feels like maybe that might have happened at some point or another.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you have a volcano somewhere hidden on a Hawaiian island, maybe Doc Rock's got one around the corner, and it opens up and out comes your spaceship and you go after it. We can just do Moonraker all over again.
Please, could you please do Moonraker all over again? That would be great.
Sean, are you worried about the GPS getting hacked?
No, I'm worried about how long it took us to get to a Moonraker reference in this show.
Months, if you count our time.
It's kind of funny because I am the person who is totally, I guess, against all of this culture of fear that we have, because I'm still blown away that so many parents are freaked out over their kid riding, that the kid goes out looking like a stormtrooper to ride a BMX. And I remember when we were like 7 or 8 years old, we left one Saturday morning right after cartoons. We got on our bikes, grabbed the fishing poles, rode around all day, no cell phones, no beepers, no way to contact anybody. And as long as you were home before the street lights went on, you didn't get your face rearranged. But nothing's really happened since that time. But everybody on the planet, dressing their kids up like stormtroopers to ride a skateboard or ride a bike. And falling down and breaking stuff was part of being a kid, And so this whole culture of fear thing that we're in right now, I'm totally anti that. And any of my friends know my drunken rants are all about you need to stop being scared about everything.
All right, let's move on to long-term predictions. David, we'll start with you this time. These are longer view, more of the in 100 years sort of predictions. What do you got for us?
Okay, this one, I'm not sure how serious this prediction is, but I found it quite an amusing thought, is obviously we're moving into new ways of communication that are going to happen. So you've got the first kind of mind headsets. We've actually got one at work, which one of our team is using to learn how to control the computer, kind of, literally one of these things that sits on your head like this. Anyway, so my prediction was that in 100 years' time, someone is going to come up with a way of actually communicating with animals. So they're going to find some way of actually mind linking with animals, and what the consequences of that's going to be, and the fact that the moment we actually did mind link with animals, we'd all decide we didn't want to eat them, and therefore we'd all end up being vegetarians. And my prediction in 100 years is therefore, thanks to mind control, McDonald's will go bust.
I love that. That's a great workaround to make that happen. But as a kid, my biggest curiosity as a kid, I think, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that struck my mind more, and I don't think there was if I could get into the brain of my dog or my gerbils. I used to raise a bunch of gerbils and sell them. I always wanted to know just for 5 minutes, just put me in there and let me see what's driving my brain, what's interesting me, what my instincts are telling me to do, how different is that from who I am. And I would love a day where this comes. And also, you should get an award. This is one of the predictions we've ever had on the show where no one's even come close to this prediction. This is a brand new one, which is kind of rare here. But here's a question for you. Let's say you get into the mind of a dog.
Yeah.
What if it's the most horrible, most horrifying thing ever? Like they're just in constant, I don't know, stress or fear, and that's the only reason they lived 14 years is not because that's how long dogs live, but they're dying of stress or something like that. What do we do with that information? Do we suddenly start drugging our dogs more? What do we do to how do we react as people as we've made them even more human yet again?
God, do you know what would happen? We just start doing what we're doing with ourselves. I imagine we'd probably start genetically splicing together chilled dogs. So you'd find one that's really calm over here, maybe kind of drools a lot, and, you know.
I heard McDonald's is thinking of serving chilled dog.
Ooh. Nothing quite like chilled dog.
Yeah, maybe that'll be their way of getting back into the market. I just love this. There was an old episode of a cartoon a little while ago that I absolutely used to love. I can't remember the name of it. It was on Cartoon. It was really stupid. And he basically did manage to talk to a dog. I don't know what happened. And literally all the dog did all the time was going, I found a thing, I found a thing, I found a thing, I found a thing, I found a thing. And I can imagine that's exactly what it is like being a dog or a cat. It's basically everything is interesting, but you have no way of describing it. So you have this one term which just covers all eventualities. It must be unbelievably frustrating.
My dad used to say that being like a dog is probably like being a kid on Halloween night. You just have that one goal. It's door, 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 candy, candy, candy. Nothing else matters. You could be barfing in the street. You don't care. It's just next door, next candy. And don't go to that lady's house because she gives out toothbrushes or something. And go to the next guy who's got big candy bars. And that's probably right. These dogs have just this single-minded instinct. I need to eat, I need to drink, I need to sleep, I need to get up, I need to play, I need to eat, and that's probably all you're going to get. Be great to find out, though.
You know, I think the funny thing about interspecies communication is if we ever get to that point, and we finally get into their head, and we could talk to, you know, many of the other mammals out there, we're going to find out that they have male to female miscommunication gap the same way that we do. The only difference is, you know, unlike if we end up talking to praying mantis, you know, we have to be scared because they could eat your head right after it's over. You know what I mean? So I think we'll just find out that there's not much difference between us and them, and there's just as many henpecked, you know, boy dogs as there is us.
I think that now that I've been listening to you guys talk about this for a minute, I think this could backfire, David. I mean, what if we as you say, we learn to communicate with animals, we start to read their thoughts, and we realize, oh, there's nothing much going on there. No problem eating them. They're dumb.
There's nothing going on. They don't have any kind of sentience. It's all fake. It's all eyes and expressions.
It's just static.
Yeah, just white noise. Let's eat more.
So basically, then what's that? McDonald's become the world government? Is that the other?
Yes, the dark flip side of this prediction. Also, Shawn, I want to know what your opinion is. What does the world do without Loco Moco if we all become vegetarians?
Oh God, Hawaii would just cave in. I mean, it'd be over. Yeah, Loco Moco is definitely the answer. And I was gonna say to David, it'd be really funny to be at Starbucks next to that pretentious girl, and the dog is like, "Yo, dude, get me out of this freaking bag. I don't like Louis Vuitton. It was so nasty."
Free me. Free me. All right, let's shift it over to you, Shawn. Your longer view prediction, maybe it's about flying cars, maybe it's not, doesn't matter. When you look farther down in your crystal ball, what do you see?
Actually, I think that people will finally wake up and I guess sort of realize that it's more up to us than, you know, assuming that everybody's going to take care of everything for us. And I think that the small businessmen, this is probably big pie in the sky dream. People are going to realize that we're the ones actually holding up the country and not these giant corporations as everyone like to blame. And we're going to all get together and do our own thing in our own part to bring up our communities, our kids, our education system. We're going to start to take responsibility again, and we're going to put this country right back where it started. And we're going to actually start watching the proper football because I'm a Manchester United freak. And I hate the fact that the thing that we play right now, we call it.
Boo, boo.
Sorry about that, David. If you say Liverpool, I'm hanging this Skype up right now.
No. Just nobody likes Manchester United. Nobody supports Manchester United in Britain. It's like it's all you guys.
Yeah, I mean, you know, but I think honestly, I think that people are slowly starting to come to terms. And it just takes a while for it to sort of spread out. I think the critical thinker masses of us have already figured this out. And people are just going to finally, you know, realize that, hey, as long as you're taking care of your particular space and being willing to get out there and share with the community, which is great about the tech world because we're very like this sort of on our own, but we need other parts of, industry to realize that we just got to take matters into our own hands and just fix it ourselves and stop worrying about what congressmen are doing because God knows they're silly. They're talking to dogs.
Well, so the idea of, having a fix to national problems or even local problems as a crowdsourced objective appeals to me on lots of levels. But then sometimes I'll see people at Walmart or something, not just Walmart, you know what I mean? And you'll go, I don't want him in my flash mob or whatever it is I'm doing. So that both intrigues me and scares me because I feel like with the right people, but then you create all kinds of segregation opportunities where everybody thinks like me, so off we go to make our change, and everyone thinks like them. And I just feel like for this to work, for communities to take responsibility for themselves, for their local conditions, and for their national conditions, they have to be somewhat like-minded. And it feels like that isn't possible right now. Like there's a lot of division that way, and it may be overblown because the media makes it seem a lot more amplified than it is. But how do you see that part of it, the downside, which is there are a lot of dissenters that would be there?
Okay, I'm going to start a huge fight on your show, but the first thing we have to do is 86 religion. Because if you watch the TED Talks from Karen Anderson or read any of her books, you will realize that in the 12 major religions, the key element in every religion is exactly the same thing. There's the same 3 or 4 major takeaways. So the sooner we can stop segregating based on quote unquote, I don't like this person because they're a different religion from me, which is sort of anti-religious in the first place. I think that'll be the first start. And once we can get over that, that's a huge hurdle. I mean, I'm retired Army, and I got a bunch of friends who are still active. And I mean, these guys are over there fighting basically a quote unquote religious war, but it's not really, religious. And I think that just has to be one of the first things to go.
So you want to just take religion out of the equation, in other words?
Yeah, take it out of the equation. I think it takes, it just takes some people, I guess, to really start thinking for themselves, and a little bit, I guess, taking responsibility to accept situations the way they are and realize that you can make changes that have nothing to do with your religion. And people do it all the time when push comes to shove. But if you ask them, they would be like, oh, I can't. It's the unchristian thing to do, or it's the Hebrew or, whatever ex-religion thing to do. But if you put them in a situation where it's life or death, they'll do whatever is necessary and then, ask for forgiveness later. So it's kind of funny that, people predicate a lot of decisions. I've had clients say that they don't want to work with another client because they don't particularly agree with their religious views, or the fact that, my brother and his mate can't get married in this country. I personally don't care. I want them to hurry up and get married and pay some taxes.
But so, okay, well, so let me say this about this, because I don't disagree with you on this. However, it seems like, because what's not going to happen is nobody's going to just go, religion's gone, it's done, it's out. It seems like what would be better or more, I don't know, maybe more forward thinking would be for people of religion, people of faith to somehow, but again, it takes a consensus, but somehow collectively agree that it's a good idea that we no longer mix our personal religious views with our public community, state, local, federal.
Wait, you're saying separation
government.
of church and state? That'll never work.
That is exactly what I'm saying. To actually follow through on that idea, this very old ideal that many of us, myself included, hold very dear in this country. I think it's key to our survival, and I think it's also possibly key to what you want to do. But again, as we see today in today's politics and today's sort of riffraff, nobody's adhering to that principle. That principle is, non-negotiable for many, many people. And I don't know how you get people to agree to do it. I think that's the answer, though. If you can get people, I think it's great. If somebody is practicing Judaism within the walls of their home and they're raising their children with certain values and all this stuff, they should be able to do that. That should be their right to do that. It's when everybody, and I'm not pulling out Judaism as an example, I'm just saying anybody who takes their religious values and tries to insert it into government, that's always bad. It's always bad. And some people say, this country was founded by Christians. Well, I say, oh, all right, but they happen to be Christians. Maybe they weren't supposed, I don't know. You've brought up one of the hardest things ever to do, but I agree with you that if we could do it, it'd be great.
Well, you know, what sort of got me on it is I was lucky enough to obtain a scholarship to go study in Japan for a year. Japan has very interesting background on religion. You ask people, they will either tell you that they're Shinto or Buddhist. However, they celebrate some of everything. Like they have Christmas, they celebrate, you know, Easter. They have the understanding of everything, and they tend to take the best parts out of everything. And there's an actual phrase called itokodori, which is like to accept things as it is, take the best parts of it and sort of make it your own. And that's the way the Japanese think about it. And I think their outlook on religion is pretty epic. However, not a lot of people know that or understand that or trust that mentality. And I think that's what was so great about listening to Karen Armstrong. Sorry, I said Anderson earlier. Karen Armstrong's points on her TED Talk, or even in her book, The 12 Steps to Compassion, which I swear I've read like 3 times. She brings up some really, really interesting arguments, and she's basically sat down with the leaders of all the major religions to do exactly what you said, Scott, to teach them that the first thing in every religion is about compassion, and compassion is not what people think. It's not, oh, I feel sorry for them. It means actually co-suffering, like really willing to be a part of, you know, whatever they're going through. Using that knowledge to then let people understand that I understand what you're doing as a Muslim or, you know, whatever religion, and I respect what you're doing. And although I may not agree, I do have to owe you that respect, and just leave it at that. But you're right. People can't do it. And somebody in the chat said, yes, pretty much just us Americans. And I'm going to say they're not that far stretched.
Yeah. I mean, I would argue that it's, you know, this isn't just a problem exclusive to us, and certainly historically hasn't been. But right now we're just in the thick of this sort of us and them kind of mentality, and that part, well, that's going to hold us back for sure, and the rest of the world may just sort of move on. But
can I jump
absolutely
back a bit on that?
Yes,
on
please,
that bit, because it's kind of interesting, because obviously in the day, in Britain, we're kind of like the doddery old man of the world now. We kind of go around on our walking stick and talk to all you lot going, well, back in the day, we were... the Brits, what we always good about us was we took the best bits of all the kind of, frankly, various countries we walked into and slammed a flag down on.
Yeah, like the Parthenon frieze, for instance.
Yeah, what kind of, and the Elgin marbles and all other bits, yeah. But we're very good at accumulating all of these different bits of religion and culture and other bits into our society. Now, we've got problems over here the same way that you guys have, with a lot of clashes between the major religions. However, as a society, we've been very successful at integrating all what's best about those different pieces together. And actually, what I was bringing this back to was you're talking about the need to get communities working together over, you know, to try and solve the problems we've got. We've got exactly that happening over here in the UK. It's got an official title. It's called the Big Society, and it's like this government's massive thing for how we're all going to help each other out of this crisis we're in, i.e. the government won't pay for it, so, hey, you guys have got to do it. So it's this massive thing they've got going on. But what I wanted to come down to was just to talk about it. Over here in Britain, they did a TV program exactly on this. What they did was they took a street of people and they took away all of the services that they would normally be given by the government. So welfare, bin collection, lighting, everything. Now, they still got them, but they had to organize how it was going to be distributed around the street. And it turned into absolute and utter chaos, because you had, for example, stuff like, okay, the girl at number 26, she's a single mother, she's on benefits. Should she still get those benefits? Should you cut them because the guy down the street needs them? And it just was an absolute unmitigated disaster. And it's why I know that you guys love the idea of small government, and I'm a big believer in free market economics and everything else. But the fact is we're all really busy in our daily lives. We've got a lot going on looking after just our families. Yes, we need to help, we need to do things, but we've also got to be realistic. Like you say, your guys at Walmart, we have something here called ASDA, which is kind of the equivalent. Yeah, you'd be having to think quite carefully.
Do you know much about what's going on in Luton? Because I know there's a lot of clashes in Luton between Islamic residents and Christian residents, and there have been riots, but things have started to calm down. And as I understand it, it's because the religious leaders of the two opposing groups started to meet, at least the ones that were less extreme, to say, look, we are not them. We are not the radicals who are causing these riots. And that actually was the first thing to start to calm things down there.
Yeah, I mean, Luton was particularly bad because I think there was, I'm not massively familiar, funnily enough, what was going on in Luton. There's a lot, actually, more problems further north in some of the towns up there. But really, it's just actually about people getting to, getting to talk to each other. And the big problem is that a lot of people, because with a lot of immigration, they've obviously moved to where other people who have come from their country live, and so they've all ended up living together in these kind of areas which are predominantly, say, Indian or African or whatever else, and there's very little mixing going on, and that's really where the problem is. The problem is stemming from, and actually, but the problem is the government over here. What it's doing is it is now basically cutting funding to organisations which have any link to any form of extremism, which is on the one side great, but on the other side is just stirring up more anger. So it's a really, really tough thing to start to make decisions on.
Yeah, it's a great idea in practice, right? Who wouldn't be against, like, let's not fund extremists? But it comes down to how do you define which organizations are extremists, that's when the fights start.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a quick break and thank our sponsor for this episode of FourCast, Netflix. Netflix brings you movies directly to your home, saves you time, money, and hassle. Just like David was saying, we have all got busy lives. You don't want to run down and have to rent movies. You don't want to have to trawl around all over the internet trying to track down movies. Netflix makes it easy. You can instantly watch thousands of TV episodes and movies streamed directly to your PC or Mac. But it's not just computers. It's also to your television as well. And that's, maybe you already get Netflix, but if you want to, like, talk someone into it, if you're looking to help out Twit and you're like, hey, you know what? I'm trying to convince my brother, my grandmother, my wife to get Netflix, show them what they can do on TV. You can watch streaming HD videos right to your television. If you've got a game console, you're done. Xbox 360, Nintendo Wii, PS3, they all have it. You can also get Netflix on lots of different set-top box devices like the Roku. In fact, there's pretty much not a set-top box device left out there that doesn't have Netflix. So check them out and just... If you're like, well, what could I watch? Give me an example of what I could watch on Netflix streaming right now. Tony Wang, producer of FourCast, recommends Alien versus Ninja. Do I need to say anything else?
No, that's enough for me. Jeez. Let's go. In fact, this show's over. Podcast done. Cheesy Japanese B-movie streaming live on Netflix streaming right now. Of course, they got lots of other great movies on there as well. Television shows. You can catch up on seasons of Buffy, The Vampire Slayer, or Firefly. All kinds of stuff. Check them out, netflix.com/twit. And we thank them for their support of FourCast. Are y'all ready to get crazy? Oh, my gosh, yes.
Shawn, you're up first for our crazy-ass predictions. One thing that's really far out there. What do you got for us?
Oh, I got one. I recently discovered, maybe like 2 months ago, my favorite brand new social network thing. I hate that word, but let's just give it what people identify it with. And it's called namesake.com. And there's basically some of the brightest and best people out there. And I really see them as the next big thing. Like, and I know a lot of people don't know about it yet because it's, still kind of working through beta stuff, but it's going to blow the roof off of Facebook and Twitter, because you can actually have a real conversation and not like this Twitter thought that you have to truncate or send out 80 tweets in a row, or Facebook where you just get to see pictures of your friends drunk doing things that they probably shouldn't be doing. So my prediction is, honestly, that's like the next big thing in tech.
Wow. So how soon? Give us a timetable.
I give them maybe a year to year and a half. It's even faster than you think, because once they go open and people realize there's a better way to do what we're doing, I think that's when it's going to explode. And Twitter's great, Facebook is great, but there's intrinsic problems to the way they're designed. And one thing that's neat about Namesake, they don't allow you to use handles, and they don't allow you to use fake avatars. And even today, like being on your show as Shawn Boyd, 2 months ago, it would have just said Doc Rock. I hadn't come out from my non-radio persona, and I've been off of radio for like 7 years. But they got me back to just wanting to be me. And
do you think it will maintain that level if it gets popular? I mean, because I felt that way a little bit about Twitter in 2006, 2007, whenever it was that I first signed up. And then over the years, it's become what it is today because it just gets too large. Anything gets too popular, it becomes less useful.
Well, see, what everyone's doing now is when someone comes on and they refuse to change their avatar or refuse to change their name, we basically just ignore them. And there's only so long you could be a 3-year-old screaming in the aisle at Walmart before, you just got to give up, stand up, and go catch up to your parents. And I think as long as the community is willing to stick with that, where we just ignore the troublemakers or, everyone asks them nicely enough times to change, and we found so far it's been working. I mean, and granted, there's only maybe like 20,000 people there at the moment, but it's amazing to me because I always hated the whole idea of social media because we have done that for years. If I was going to be somewhere, nearby you or Scott, and I wanted to buy, I don't know, some a great steak and, or a good Japanese restaurant, I would just ask you guys and you would tell me where to go. And we've been doing that for hundreds and thousands of years, but all of a sudden, some brainiac put a buzzword on it, and everyone's like, oh, let me turn this into a business and charge people $10,000 to give recommendations on how to give good customer service. Right. I just find the whole thing absolutely retarded, and especially because people say, oh, so-and-so is a social media expert. Last time I checked, 5 years, 10,000 hours before you could even use the word expert. What we know as social media is about 4 years old, so you don't even get to call yourself expert. But yet there's people out there making a really long HTML sales page. Buy my book for $97, and I'll give you 2 for the same price. I mean, it's so douchey, and that has to go away. And I think the people talking and being communicative like we're doing today, that's how it's done. Real conversations, and that's why your show rocks.
So why namesake and not, I don't know, the other next big thing? Like, what is it that sets them apart in your mind?
They took Quora, Friend Feed, LinkedIn, and Twitter, locked them in a room, and sort of gene spliced them together to come out with this thing. But really, it's the passion of the CEO. He was one of the guys behind MySpace, and I think him being in position to watch one of the greatest fish ever was get away, I think when he come to start his new thing, he sort of know what you're doing. And it's sort of like, look at all of us in our original podcast and compare it to where we are right now. Like, I'm amazed that when I listened to one of the podcasts I created in like 2004, it sounds so horrible. So I think that has a lot to do with it.
Interesting. David, what is your take on the next big wave of social media? Who's gonna land that deal?
Do you know, I'm kind of going to be honest and say, actually, I don't really care very much. I'm kind of the whole social media thing. One of my predictions I was thinking about coming on with for the short term stuff was to say that the coolest thing anybody will be able to do within the next 5 years is to not have a phone. And a smartphone or anything that goes with it, as in to be uncontactable will be the coolest thing you could possibly have. And so, I mean, I use Twitter a lot. I don't really use Facebook. I use LinkedIn for various other things. I use various things for business, but it's great. It's lovely. It's very exciting. But my thing is if you go back over the years, I went to this amazing presentation recently in Cambridge here in the UK, where they listed about 50 companies and asked people to put their hands up as to who had heard of them. And of those 50 companies, all of them were $1 billion plus companies. And it's $1 billion in the 80s. And no one had heard of them, or hardly anybody had heard of them. And I find it's very exciting right now, and everyone's piling money into it. But I think in 10, 15 years' time, we're going to be kind of, okay.
Interesting. So we're going to be, the next big thing in social media might just be no more
social media.
Yeah. Like, we'll just start talking and hanging out more, maybe.
I'm going to check out namesake.
No, that's the thing.
In a way, you're both arguing the same thing. That's what's funny about this, because, on the one hand, you're saying that this stuff will just go away. But also we're kind of saying, well, no, the next big thing will be this thing that's figured out how to put us back into a natural conversation. Really, that's the same thing. One has some, tools, exactly the other doesn't, but still.
Yeah, so that's exactly it. That's the thing is that's why I hate the name social media, because in and of itself, it kind of doesn't make sense. Or people say social networking, which is worse, because somebody had asked a question once about social conversations. And I was like, did you just say that? I mean, every conversation is social by, I guess, unless you're just yelling. I think people are mixing terminologies because we get to a point where we think being social is necessarily being nice, but no, it's just talking or being part of a community, regardless of your stance in it. And I think what you just said, Scott, about David's point and my point are sort of the same in the way it's true. And that's why I think this is going to work, because it's like, I guess Tom knows because he's been in there, and Sarah and Amber talked about it, a couple weeks ago. You really have to go in there and just have normal conversations with normal people. And it's almost like IRC in a way, but you can actually, there's media you can put in it. You can put audio and video and pictures and things like that. So I like the days of IRC. Maybe I'm old school, and that was a lot more fun, and it's a live conversation. You know what I mean?
You're absolutely right. We've inside our company, we've tried. There's 30 of us, and we're kind of spread around the UK a bit. We've got 2 main locations. We tried everything. So Gamma, blah blah blah. Our entire company, even the non-devs, uses IRC now. We all just sit on that thing because it's really fast and really simple, and it works. And that's kind of why. And it allows you to get across what you need to say. There's no limits. There's no nothing. I mean, the thing for me is that, social networking, social media is basically just communication. And it's a communication that's utilizing the best of what we have to offer now. Will social networking in the future be some kind of, communication, be something in your brain with a chip which talks to other people with chips? I mean, I don't know. All of it is just another way of holding out a conversation. And that's why I don't find it in itself particularly mind-blowingly exciting. I'm sure if I'd invested in Facebook in 2000 and whatever, I'd find it very exciting. But, missed that boat.
as did I. All right, let's go with your crazy ass prediction then, David. This is our last of our set. One really far out there. Time frame doesn't matter. Just take the leap. What do you got?
Can I try first? Our prediction my first prediction is that within the next 1,000 years, Netflix might actually launch in the UK. I'm just going to put that one out there.
That is crazy, but all right. No, he's actually. I think Reed Hastings, threw out some crumbs to you in his last investor conversation, saying, "Yes, we're definitely going to expand overseas. Whether we'll see if it happens."
Yeah. Okay. Fine. At the moment, anyway, I'd love it. Anyway, my prediction, the next 1,000-year prediction is, it's not so much the next 1,000-year prediction, but it's something I think is happening now, which could happen next 1,000 years, which is, I reckon somewhere right now today, something is evolving which will kill us all in 1,000 years.
Like disease, like fungus, like that stuff in Germany is scaring the crap out of everybody. Those spores coming out of whatever the heck, whatever that weird. Not even a disease. I mean, if you look at the rate that stuff goes on, maybe it's not. So maybe it's something that we're going to create. But I just would love the idea of this. There's the book. I don't know if you ever read it, The Day of the Triffids, with killer plants.
Classic.
Yeah, but I love the idea that somewhere in the jungle, somewhere in the deepest, darkest Amazon rainforest, there is some kind of sentient plant that is it's growing and it's getting more and more blah blah, but over a long period of time, which is going to appear in 1,000 years when we all think we're super safe in our megalopolis whatever bubble of social networking, and it's going to kill us all. I just think that's it just really appeals to the kind of part of me that thinks that we love to think we've got everything so under control, we're really in charge of everything, and technology is going to get us out of, and you just don't know what's going to come out of the left field at you in that 1,000-year time frame. So I just would love the idea that we're all in our McDonald's world government approved Uber suit with everything else, and yet we step on a plant and it goes up through our foot and kills us. I just think that's great.
I don't disagree. I think that would be awesome. I've always said, and I told this to my kids the other day.
You guys both realize, I think everybody dying would be awesome. I just want to make clear. That's
no. I'm just saying, when we do, I want it to be all at once. Like I was telling the family the other day, I'm like, I don't want to go down in a plane with my wife someday and the kids be left without us. Or I don't want my kids to die in a car accident and me and her mom are still around. I want it all to happen one time. And it sounds kind of morbid, but just one big giant plant or dinosaur or whatever it has to be. Let's do it all at once, clean cut, boom, done, out.
That's some serious GTD right there, Scott. It's kind of funny what David is saying, because ever since I was a kid, long before I ever knew what quantum physics was or, down the rabbit hole, whatever you want to call it, I've always had this reoccurring dream that we are in some kind of epically giant snow globe or like alien ant farm, and there's some dude up there basically playing a live version of The Sims with us, and when his mom calls him and tells him to go study and he turns off the game, we're done.
Yeah, The 13th Floor, if you ever watch that movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of a similar principle.
Yes, there was a crappy movie, but good principle. Could have been better, but yes, basically. So I've had that as a reoccurring dream, I swear, since I was about 9 years old. And it's funny, every once in a while it comes up in conversation. When I tell people that, they think I'm crazy. I'm happy to find 3 other people that don't think I'm crazy now.
Congratulations.
I will tweet you, Dave, if I ever get in trouble with that conversation again. I'll be like, no, look, you my friend. He'll tell you. It's true.
Killer plants and snow globes. But
do you think it necessarily has to be plants? Because the Neanderthals used to have a podcast, which in their language translated to FourCast, and they had a prediction that some ape-like creature would evolve in Africa and drive them all out of existence. And look, here we are.
It doesn't have to be a plant. I just like the idea that something is, because we love to think we know everything about the world, and I just love the idea that there really could still be something out there that might not be a disease, which is what everyone thinks it's going to be, but something far cooler, like the resurgence of something that's buried in the deepest Arctic ice core that turns out to be Megatron or something.
I think it's actually the plot of Rise of the Planet of the Apes, which is coming out later this year.
See, I think it has to be a plant because of Rick Moranis, and every time you guys mention whether it's plants or Plants versus Zombies, all I can hear is, feed me, Simo.
Now, there's an old reference.
Turns into a prophetic.
We've learned today that Rick Moranis should come out of retirement. That's the lesson we've learned on today's FourCast.
And so
see if that's on Netflix today, because I haven't watched that.
So we honor Canada. All right, Scott, I think it's time for 4 questions.
That's right, 4 questions. This is where we ask our guests 4 questions, rapid fire style. They are not allowed to take too long to answer. They got to go right from the gut, even if they're in Hawaii. Are you guys ready for your quick fire questions? All right. I forget who I'm asking. Let's see.
You're asking David.
Oh, I'm asking David. David, are you sitting comfortably?
No, I'm on a kitchen chair, but okay, fine.
Brilliant. What candy of today do you wish they could rework for the world of tomorrow?
Good God. There used to be a candy for today called Nerds, which were these kind of little tiny pills-like things. With all the different flavors. You should shake them up and you have them all on go. They got in trouble because someone put glass in them, I seem to remember. Anyway, you should remake those, but with far cooler, like Willy Wonka-style flavors, like Harry Potter with kind of puke flavors and sick flavors and other stuff like that. I think that's a good thing for the future.
And less glass.
Barf-flavored Nerds. I like it. What technology should we start using human hair for to make it better? Or in?
Definitely. I think the metal ropes on the side of airships, I think that's really important. It's obviously really strong. It's amazingly light. I think this is the structure of the future when we all, frankly, go around in mega blimps.
All right, bringing back the dirigibles. Which will be worse, talking chickens or regular chickens with guns on their heads?
I think the talking chickens, after our earlier conversation about what they'd be saying, I'd take them with guns on their heads any day.
Okay, fair enough. And then finally, your last fast fire question here. When teleportation finally comes to the average home, where is the first place you would like to transport?
I would like to transport myself. God, my wife won't watch this, will she? I'd like to transport myself straight away into the White House. I'd like to do that, actually. I'd like to transport myself into the White House and sit behind that chair and basically make a mess of things.
Why is your wife going to be worried about that?
Because she sees what a mess of things I make at home, and me at the White House would be a bad thing.
Fair enough. Nice job. You've passed wonderfully.
Thank you.
All right, let's move it over to you, Shawn. Are you sitting comfortably?
Yes, I am, and I'm so glad I didn't get the hair question.
Good, then we'll begin. Question number 1, what will the name of the new political party in the United States be called in 100 years?
The smartest people in the world.
Wow. Vote smartest people in the world party.
Yes, no. No, that have to be some crazy acronym. So what would that be? SPIW. Maybe we'll just call them twits. I'm cool with that. Run
All right.
by
Yeah, sure.
Laporte.
Leo Laporte's head will still be alive. Question number 2. When will the Swiss finally pick a freaking side?
Jeez.
Oh my God, you're expecting someone who puts holes in their cheese, to pick a side. Actually, I'm going to say they will pick a side right after my Red Sox win like 3 or 4 championships in a row.
Oh man, this will never happen then.
All right.
Hey.
Question number 3. Descent into post-apocalyptic anarchy or realization of world utopia? Which one are we going to get?
Wow.
Oh, I'm going for realization of world utopia. I think that, a couple things have to happen. We need to go back to being able to drink at work like the guys on Mad Men, just minus the cigarettes because, the office stinks.
And the cirrhosis.
And once we can go back to a liquid lunch, I think world utopia is just awesome. Can you imagine these Skype conversations at, right now if all of us were just a little bit more faded?
I can. I'm not sure it's the utopia that you're imagining. Is the difference.
I live in utopia, so it's kind of hard for me to get it any better than this. I mean, you were just here.
Another day in paradise.
What a fantastic future he envisions.
All right, question number 4. I've asked this of some other guests before, but I want to get your opinion. How near is the singularity?
That is a very good question. I think it's a little bit hard because singularity is just not something most people think about due to the fact that we are such hoarders. And if we can get a show on 3 different networks about collecting crap, collecting dogs, or, collecting cars like Mr. Leno, I think until people can get over it and just learn sometimes one is just enough, the whole idea of singularity is not going to happen. It's impossible.
So the singularity is being prevented by hoarders.
Yes, like by hoarders and
like Jay Leno, by the way.
Yeah, totally.
Isn't the singularity Jay Leno's ego?
It is very near.
Well, if we're going to make the party twit, then we're going to have to cryogenically freeze Leo right next to Ted Williams. So that might be it.
And bury them all underneath Disney World.
Leo as Max Headroom?
Oh, yeah.
Sadly, yes. That is all too easy to imagine. All right, that is it for our show. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Really appreciate having you along. David Peto, CEO of A-Frame. Let folks know what's going on with A-Frame and where they can find it.
Oh, sure. You can go to aframe.com. You can follow us on A-Frame HQ on Twitter. We're basically the world's first globally capable video production, archive, and distribution platform that is easy to use as Facebook.
I think we might need that. Also, Shawn Boyd, a.k.a. Doc Rock, writer for Nonstop Honolulu and all-around Swiss Army Nerd. Thank you so much, man. It was great having you on the show. Let folks know where they can find what you're doing and what you're up to.
I guess basically either on my blog itself or you can hit about me/Doc Rock. And normally I'm podcasting. I'm trying to teach the world to drink sake because it's the only beverage that you could drink 3 or 4 bottles of and never get a hangover. Like I've been drinking way too much of it.
That's a lie.
I think I must have been doing it wrong.
My wife is half Japanese. I've spent some time in Japan. I've had some terrible hangovers from sake. Really bad.
Okay. We're going to have another training class when you guys are out. Maybe I'll be doing good stuff. But yeah, that's it. I mean, always podcasting. So always looking for new stuff to get in. And since you won't find me on Facebook and Twitter that much, just look for me on Namesake, namesake.com/Doc Rock.
All right. And mrdocrock.com. Mahalo again, my friend. Great to have everybody on. Scott Johnson. Any business before we close out here? Nerdtacular's coming up this weekend. I'll be seeing you Thursday.
I'll see you on Thursday night. And the big event's on Friday. We're going to stream the whole thing, so people should keep their eyes peeled on frogpants.com for the audio stream. Also record a bunch of it, so a lot of the stuff will show up on various shows. It's going to be awesome. And Tom will be there, so it's awesomer. And I can't wait to see it. It's going to be awesome.
Try not to detract from the awesomeness that is Nerdtacular. Thanks, everybody, for watching. You can find us on the web, frogpants.com or FourCastPodcast.com. Email us, fourcastpodcast@gmail.com. We'll see you next time.
32 years away.